The markets are closed, but the business stories are just heating up. Hello, I'm Mai Rodriguez. Catch up with us on Business Brief. Asian shares are mostly lower as investors brace for a key U.S. jobs report that may justify imminent rate cuts by the Federal Reserve. Investors are also waiting on the passage of a massive U.S. tax and spending bill in Congress. Republicans appear to be struggling to unite behind the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill, which is expected to add $3.3 trillion to the national debt, slash taxes, and reduce social safety net programs. Japan's Nikkei 225, Hong Kong's Hang Seng, and Singapore's Straits Times are in the red, while South Korea's Kospi and China's Shanghai Composite are in the green. However, Australia's ASX 200 is flat with a downward bias. In the currency markets, the US dollar appreciates against the Japanese yen and the South Korean won, but it is flat against the Hong Kong dollar, Singapore dollar, and the Thai baht. The Australian dollar, meanwhile, depreciates against the greenback. In commodities and crypto, gold prices rise by 0.2%. Oil markets are mixed, with both West Texas Intermediate crude and Brent crude falling, while Dubai crude is up by nearly 3%. In the cryptocurrency space, both Bitcoin and Ethereum are in negative territory. President Donald Trump's Republican party mates at the House of Representatives are at a stalemate on efforts to move forward his tax and spending bill. Speaker Mike Johnson is trying to convince nearly a dozen holdouts to support the effort to advance the measure. If the GOP leadership succeeds, the House would move on to final passage as quickly as possible following debates on the bill. But if the vote fails, it would deal a major setback to Republicans. President Trump eases off a steeper tariff plan on Vietnam as they reach a trade agreement. In a Truth Social post, Trump revealed that Vietnamese exports to the U.S. will face a 20% tariff instead of the initially proposed 46%. Goods routed through Vietnam from third countries, mostly China, will be taxed 40%. In return, U.S. goods, including large cars, will be duty-free going into Vietnam. The U.S. is Vietnam's largest export market, a trade link that has deepened since Trump targeted China with tariffs in his first term of office. U.S. software developers Synopsys and Cadence design systems are set to resume exports to China. The tech firm said the U.S. government has lifted export restrictions on chip design software to Beijing. This may be a signal that the two largest economies have settled a dispute over rare earths that had undermined a trade deal reached in May. Back in April, China responded to U.S. export curbs by suspending exports of a range of rare earths and related magnets. This disrupted supply chains to automakers, semiconductor companies, and military contractors worldwide. An analyst says President Donald Trump's proposed 17% tariff on Philippine exports could have significant economic impact. In an interview on BNC's Business 360, Jonathan Ravelas, senior advisor at Reyes Tacondong and Company, said, while the Philippines is not highly export-oriented, the tariff will still affect our industries. He cites secondary inflationary effects and currency volatility. Ravelas pointed out the tariff could squeeze competitiveness as other ASEAN countries slapped with even higher rates.
In the recent update of the government's DBCC, they've actually lowered our export target from 5% to negative 2%. So this already is a clear signal that, the 17%, though we're not really as export-oriented, is actually going to hit us. And again, we're still awaiting what the trade talks between the U.S. and the Philippines. So at worst, we're at the 17%.
As the government struggles to meet lowered export targets, the economy's ability to weather these challenges now depends on key policy adjustments and maintaining inflation control. The Philippines may see a surge in job opportunities this year, fueled by an accelerated shift to renewable energy. That's according to the International Labor Organization, despite rising global trade tensions. It notes the volume of investments flowing in, especially in clean energy, could help offset potential losses from the projected 7 million jobs expected to be lost globally due to trade disruptions. It adds this volume of investments could also fuel significant employment growth. Tourism's demand for water, energy, and carbon emissions grew in 2024. Latest data from the Philippine Statistics Authority shows that tourism water use rose to about 222 million cubic meters last year, from 204 million in 2023, driven by accommodation services. Energy consumption hit over 7,400 kilotons of oil equivalent last year, up from 6,000 in 2023, led by transport services. Carbon emissions increased to over 10,000 gigagrams, mainly from transport, compared to more than 8,000 in 2023. We're taking a short break. More business stories up next. You're watching Business Brief. Digital solutions are on the rise, but does everyone have access? On the final day of this year's Corporate Social Responsibility Conference in Makati, over 200 private sector leaders try to address this problem through strategic and data-driven social investments. Our reporter Sujin Kim is there to give us an update. Go ahead, Sujin.
Mai, as companies move to digitize their impact, the conference puts a spotlight on the country's most persistent barrier, infrastructure gaps. The expansion of digital tools, whether in education delivery, insurance claims, or aid tracking, remains constrained in thousands of rural communities that lack even basic electricity. Speakers called this a fundamental contradiction, where digitalization without electrification risks widening, not closing existing inequalities.
Because, if you have all of these services that rely on digital, we have many communities in the Philippines that don't even have power, much less technology. So I think a big part moving forward, as we do more digital solutions, we also have to make sure that access to digital products and access to being online and access to energy become a part of the solutions that we look at.
Electrification efforts, they said, must be built into the national CSR agenda. Fragmented power distribution continues to isolate mountain barangays, indigenous communities, and far-flung coastal areas. Unless these gaps are addressed, digital CSR solutions will remain the privilege of urban regions. Meanwhile, foundations such as Metrobank Foundation are strengthening the education to employment pipeline, helping scholars transition not only to graduation, but also into the Metrobank Group's employment network.
So we have an active push that when our scholars graduate from college, we also link up with not only Metrobank, but the bigger, group of Metrobank companies so that we can also provide employment opportunities for our scholars. So diretso na siya from education to employment.
In the financial sector, Cebuana Lubilier is actively exploring the use of blockchain technology to strengthen trust in microinsurance delivery and claims processing. With over 54 million Filipinos now covered by microinsurance products, the company is seeking technologies that will make records tamper-proof, auditable, and accessible even in low connectivity environments.
Infusing blockchain technology definitely will be able to make financial records more transparent, and therefore at least we can be able to obviate or even minimize, if not eliminate, distrust and enhance the integrity in our auditing processes.
Beyond fraud prevention, the strategy aims to democratize access to financial records and ensure transparent transactions across a highly fragmented insurance ecosystem. The League of Corporate Foundations confirmed that its members collectively spend billions of pesos annually on CSR programs, with most companies benchmarking at least 1% of net profits towards social investments. However, industry leaders acknowledge that standardized metrics such as impact per peso remain a work in progress. Most companies still rely on self-reported qualitative evaluations rather than third-party, data-driven assessments. And as the conference concluded, the unified call to action was this: CSR must be designed for last-mile delivery. Companies must build for deployment in areas without power, connectivity, or representation. And those are latest updates from Makati City. Back to you, Mai.
Thank you for that report, Sujin Kim. Close but not enough. The Philippines misses upper middle income status by just $26, according to the World Bank's new income rankings. GNI per capita hit a record $4,470 last year, but to level up, we needed to clear $4,496. This means we remain a lower middle income economy for another year. Vietnam, meanwhile, just edged ahead with $4,490, but still didn't make the cut either. GNI, or gross national income, tracks what Filipinos earn here and abroad. And while we're gaining ground, it's not yet enough to shift our global standing. This matters because income classifications impact everything from credit ratings and aid eligibility to investor confidence. So we didn't make it this year, but the climb isn't over. Finance Secretary Ralph Recto says the Philippines could still hit upper middle income status within 2 years. Recto points to strong fundamentals and heftier government spending with an expansionary fiscal strategy meant to boost growth, create jobs, and lift more Filipinos out of poverty. To cross that threshold, the Philippines needs a GNI per capita of at least $4,496. Over 600,000 Filipino workers in the United Arab Emirates can keep sending money home for free. The Emirates National Bank of Dubai will start charging a fixed rate of 400 pesos on most international transfers by September 1. But the Philippines is one of only 6 countries exempted from remittance fees. Migrant Workers Secretary Hans Kakda calls this a lifeline for families relying on OFW money transfers. Remittances from abroad remain a critical driver of the Philippine economy. We're taking a short break. More business stories up next. You're watching Business Brief. Back on Business Brief. Microsoft is axing 9,000 employees in its biggest cut since 2023 as it leans harder on artificial intelligence. The layoffs affect about 4% of Microsoft's global workforce. This follows a 7,000 staff cut in May. AI now writes up to 30% of Microsoft's code, and the company is pouring billions into AI infrastructure. The tech giant's first quarter 2025 profits surged 18% to $25.8 billion, with strong returns from cloud solutions and AI services. A shock verdict in one of the most closely watched celebrity trials. Sean Diddy Combs is acquitted of sex trafficking and the most serious charge of racketeering conspiracy. But while the music mogul dodged the biggest bullet, he's not walking free. The details from Asis Carrillo.
Today's a great victory. It's a great victory for Sean Combs. It's a great victory for the jury system.
The camp of Sean Diddy Combs celebrating the stunning verdict in his high-profile trial. The music mogul was cleared of sex trafficking and racketeering charges that could have put him behind bars for life. But he was convicted on 2 lesser counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. Combs faces up to 20 years in prison.
I also have been saying this since the beginning of this case. Sean Combs has not sexually assaulted anybody. I've been saying this for months. We've said it with each lawsuit that came out, and today that was proven true.
Combs' sentencing is tentatively scheduled for October 3rd. Until then, he will remain at a federal jail in Brooklyn after the district judge rejected the defense's request for bail. The judge says it is impossible for Combs to demonstrate that he poses no danger. The verdict caps off a 7-week trial centered on disturbing testimony from 2 of his former girlfriends, including Phil-Am R&B singer Cassie Ventura. Combs was accused of forcing them to partake in drug-fueled sex parties known as freak-offs. Both women testified that Combs beat them, threatened to withhold financial support, and leak their explicit images. Ventura's lawyer is confident Combs still faces substantial incarceration.
We're pleased that he's finally been held responsible for 2 federal crimes, something that he's never faced in his life. He still faces substantial jail time. Of course, we would have liked to have seen a conviction on the sex crimes in RICO, but we understand beyond a reasonable doubt is a high standard, and we're just pleased that he still faces substantial jail time.
Combs, once a billionaire entertainment powerhouse, was known for lavish parties and shaping the careers of stars like Notorious B.I.G. and Usher. As the jury unveiled their verdict, his supporters and critics clashed outside the Manhattan federal court.
Let Puffy go! Let Puffy go! Let Puffy go!
It's very difficult to deal with it. Do I feel that justice was served? No, not at all.
I think that he doesn't just walk away scot-free, and I think a lot of people wanted him to walk away scot-free because of his celebrity. But again, this is a celebrity versus morality, and I think the fair balance showed itself in the verdict today.
While Combs may have dodged a life sentence, the legal fight is far from over, as he still faces dozens of civil lawsuits accusing him of abuse. Ann Asis Carrillo, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
Lea Salonga is about to make her mark in the most iconic way. The Filipino theater icon will receive a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, joining the star-studded class of 2026. Other awardees include Miley Cyrus, Demi Moore, rock duo Air Supply, and Chef Gordon Ramsay. Lea posted the news on Instagram and thanked the Manila International Film Fest for nominating her. She will be the first Filipina to receive the prestigious honor. Lea is most known for her Tony Award-winning role as Kim in Miss Saigon and for being the singing voices for Disney's Mulan and Princess Jasmine of Aladdin. Her latest role is the singing voice behind Celine, a character in the hit animated Netflix film K-pop Demon Hunters. Philippine shares bounced back into positive territory after falling nearly 0.1% yesterday. The PSE index ended higher by 0.7% to close at 64.68, finishing the day as the 3rd best performer in Asia. Majority of the sectoral indices ended in the green, with holding firms rising the most at more than 1%. But decliners outpaced advancers 126 to 84. Total value turnover reached 10.2 billion pesos. More than half of the day's most active stocks ended in the green, with GT Capital Holdings rising the most at more than 3%. Meanwhile, at the foreign exchange market, the peso is currently trading at 56.28 against the greenback, appreciating from the previous close of 56.37. That's a wrap for today's Business Brief. I'm Mai Rodriguez. Join us again tomorrow as we bring you the stories that help you plan your next big, bold moves in business, only here on the Bilyonaryo News Channel. See you then.